They're exclusively white. And...
Old.
Male.
Male is the right idea. And there's the shamrock, of course. There's a rule that an Irish person told me is never going to an Irish pub in America or London that has a neon shamrock, because it'll be crap.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
Any American sort of Irish pub.
Yeah.
Come on in, to be sure, and you'll have a right old great crack of a time.
It'd be very annoying. Yeah, but this particular chase happened, as I say, in '64, but in 1982, a man called Brian, which is a good Irish name, told the Liverpool Echo that he had been working in the park when some children saw him and mocked him for his height, or rather lack of it. And so, joining in the sport, he spoke in sort of sort of Irish gibberish. I know, I'm sorry, I'm doing what he did. Threw sods of earth at them, and they ran away frightened, thinking he was a leprechaun. So, because they called him a leprechaun.
Came back with their
they
brothers.
said, "Oh, you're a leprechaun," and he went, "I am that." And so they all said, "Yeah, we saw a leprechaun. We saw, you know, saw a real one, saw a real leprechaun in the park." And so all these kids, you know, they all invaded it.
Like a lost episode of Brookside.
Where does it begin? But these particular things happen from time to time, these mass delusions or whatever you might call them, and they're called the children's hunt when they involve children. So in 1964, as Beatlemania swept the world, Leprechaun Mania swept Liverpool. Which London attraction cost 2 arms and 2 legs to enter? Oh, look at that, isn't that gorgeous?
Oh, wow.
Ladybird book, I'll be bound. Don't you think?
Yes, it's
very
got,
Ladybird
it's got the
book.
look of a ladybird book.
It looks like there's been a pigeon accident, and they're all gathered around the scene to see what happened.
Is this picture a clue? Is it in
No,
this
it's not
picture?
at all, actually. It's just
It's not
rather...
to do with art, is it?
No, it's not.
Tower of London.
Sounds like
The Tower of London is where we need to be. Cue picture of Tower of London.
Traitors' Gate, all I know.
There's the Tower of London, and we're talking about an attraction within the Tower of London that lasted for 600 years. Henry I, who was a very early king, had a particular, rather exciting luxury that he was very fond of, that he kept in Woodstock in Oxfordshire. And King John, who was late 12th, early 13th century, moved it to the Tower of London, where it stayed for 600 years. And you had to pay to get in to see it, but you could... I say 2 arms and 2 legs. It's really 4 legs, to be honest.
Oh, like you could give an animal.
You could bring in an animal, and that would...
4 chicken drumsticks.
That
Look at a
wouldn't quite
KFC.
do, no. And that would get you in free, because they would use the animal to satisfy what you were going to see.
A dragon.
A mincer.
Sort of like a dragon to them. I mean,
Sir?
Lion or a...
Bear.
lion and bear, yes, all those things. A big menagerie,
Oh, wow.
as zoos were called. There's an 18th century, by the look of it, cartoon, Rowlandson-style cartoon.
That's the last dodo.
Oh, it does look a bit like it, doesn't it? I think it's some hugely complicated satire that we don't really get. Anyway, that's a cartoon of the menagerie. It lasted all the way till 1830, when it was transported to, or transferred to...
London Zoo?
To Regent's Park, to London Zoo, yes. So there was the menagerie. It was immensely popular all through those years. If you were a sheriff in the City of London and around, you had to pay 4p a day to help with the feeding of the polar bear. So they were presumably quite good animal keepers if they managed to keep these animals, because, you know, they couldn't afford to let them die very quickly. But, I mean, how long it would take in the 15th, 16th century to get a lion to England, it was just inconceivable how long it would
What
take.
sort of animals do they have?
They had...
Oh, a cat.
There
Cool.
it is. That's a cat would be if you brought a cat or a dog to feed to the lions, or the tigers. They had tigers as well, and they had bears, and they had, as I said, polar bear. So they had what were considered immensely exotic animals. You would feed them, and free admission.
I bet that was used as a punishment for kids. I bet
We'll feed you
I'll
to
tell
the
you what,
lions.
You do that again, I'm taking you there, and you're getting fed to the bloody lions. You'd walk them right up to the door if they were being really bad.
Well,
But what if you had a pet lion? And you
yes.
turned up and you wanted entrance and they went, it's a bit rich for my blood. You know
Say that.
what I mean? Yeah, take the lion, see how far you get.
There was a rather unfortunate incident. In 1830, a keeper accidentally allowed 2 tigers and 1 lion to be in the same enclosure, and there was a horrible fight that he only managed to end by introducing a sort of red-hot prongs to the noses of the tigers, who eventually stalked off. But who do you think won?
2-1.
Yeah, and his tigers, yeah.
The Lion King.
Tigers.
No, the Lion King didn't win, I'm afraid. Simba licked his wounds and died a few days later. Yes, it's very sad. Very sad. But anyway, yeah, it was an amazing place. Imagine an imaginary menagerie managed by an imaginary menagerie manager. See what I'm saying? So there we are. Now, what would you do in 12th century London if you saw this man?
It is a ghost.
Oh, you're spending a penny, are you?
Spend my penny,
Jason's spending his penny.
Must be.
You're absolutely right.
You go
You're
over and-
absolutely right.
You put that round you.
That's right. Do you want to try it out?
Go on then.
Is that not an old-fashioned Portaloo?
This is Steve, one of our most
What do I do?
gifted
Just-
intellectuals. Intellectual elves.
Newspaper.
And I believe there's an extra farthing for a happy ending.
Yeah, sufficient. Sufficient.
So, that's right. In the 12th century, there were those who were a little bit too, who were a little bit pernickety and didn't want to be seen taking a poo in the street, as many did. And so these gentlemen would come around with their big capes and allow you a little bit of privacy.
Did people used to just poo in the street?
Otherwise, they would poo in the street, I'm afraid.
Would they?
Yep.
Times have changed, haven't they, Stephen?
They have, absolutely. Though there's a lot of peeing in the street, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll admit to that, but, you know, he needs...
Quite. Needs must. May I thank a senior elf who has done something well beneath his huge dignity. Steve Colvin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Marvellous service. We do know the name of one of these, Thomas Butcher, because in the records he was fined for overcharging.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, afterwards, like, he had a look in and went, I think you can give me a fiver, you do.
Possibly. That wouldn't be overcharging. Oh, dear.
Did they have anyone standing beside him selling, like, deodorant to lollipops?
I can imagine there was a whole...
Toilet roll, really, that's who you want behind you.
Now, there's an animal that sort of also does that similar draping effect. Do you know what it might be?
It's a bird with
It is
its
a bird.
with its feathers. I can't remember. Is
its
it a
wings.
night?
It's a black heron. And why would it do that? Why would it...
To protect its eggs?
There it is.
The one.
There's it doing it. Black heron.
Is it to trick its prey into thinking it's night time? So it comes
It's
out?
not to think it's nighttime. It actually creates a shadow, and fish are very drawn to cooler water in certain climates. So the fish see this, what they think will be cooler water, because there may be a tree overhanging or something like that, and it just gobbles them up. So it's a lure. It's a wonderful, clever lure.
It's amazing to watch, actually. We did a show for the BBC called Walk on the Wild Side, which you did a voice
Yes,
for,
I remember doing the
actually.
voices for various animals,
Yeah, and it's sort of it does it in quite an odd motion, like it's quite fast. Because we did a thing and it just went nighttime, daytime, nighttime, daytime, nighttime.
That's so sweet.
Our little fun little sketch. On
I do it with men in nightclubs. I go...
It's you.
It is me.
Oh, there you go. Horror. Medieval lavatory attendants provided personal privacy and a bucket. Now it's time to get our kit off and frolic in the sub-zero temperatures of general ignorance. So fingers on buzzers, if you would. What's black and white and doesn't live in the Arctic?
Penguins.
Oh, what a shame! Oh. Well, you know, the fact is they're not indigenous to the Arctic, the North Pole. And you're right, they don't naturally occur there, but man has taken them there as pets on boats because they're cute. And then they were left there and they sort of got on and made a living pretty happily amongst the fish there with...
Despite being eaten by polar bears.
Well, that was a surprise when they met the polar bears.
Why are you so dressed up and where are you off to? Why are you sitting on a penguin? Sorry.
Despite what they say, there are some penguins in the Arctic. Which part of the world does the idea of eating frogs' legs come from? Go on, Jason.
France.
No! Very sweet of you. You are nice.
Is it England?
Yes! Yes, my soul. So far as we can tell, this is absolutely right. There is evidence of the early Neolithic British eating frogs' legs in our most iconic memorial. There it is. Stone... Look at it. Henge. Yeah, exactly. What could be hengier or stonier? How many years ago? I'll give you 1,000 either way, when we discovered...
4,000.
4,000? It's about 9,000 years ago. That's to say it's between 7,000 and 6,000 BC. There is evidence not just of eating... Well, there's toads, but also we've got three-course meal evidence. Frogs with hazelnuts, followed by a fish course, followed by blackberries. That's not bad, is it?
Sounds nice.
That would see you through nicely. Very healthy. Very healthy. To the nearest 1,000 tons. How many tons of frogs' legs do the French get through a year?
500.
500,000 tons. 500,000 tons. It's between 3,000 and 4,000. Still a fair quantity.
I thought they had massive frogs.
It would fill...
bad.
So, frogs' legs were first eaten in Wiltshire. What's the name of the fortifications that mark the northern boundary of Roman Britain?
Come on, then.
Yeah.
Hadrian's Wall.
Oh, dear, dear, dear. Anyone in the audience know?
What's further north? Where do they go that was further north than that?
Antonine. Oh, dear. Audience get a penalty. There, you fell into our trap. There are some intelligent people who do know that the Antonine Wall is north of Hadrian's Wall, but a very obscure fact, certainly confess I had no idea of, it's the Gasque Ridge system, which is the oldest and, indeed, the northernmost of the boundaries. There's the Antonine Wall. We can see Hadrian's Wall there. And there's the Gasque Ridge, which doesn't
look as good.
Doesn't go from coast to coast.
I would start taking maybe go around it.
I think I use the same builders as that. Actually.
You could walk round it a little bit, but it was the northernmost.
All right, well, there's a defence against fat people. Lazy people. We don't... Oh, do you have to walk? I won't bother.
Hadrian's Wall remains the longest continuous fortification in Europe. Obviously, it's nothing compared to the Great Wall of China, but it was still pretty impressive. It was garrisoned by how many troops in its day, do you think?
I don't know, but I do know that they took 40,000 troops to try and suppress Scotland. And then when they got there, they found there was nowhere really to suppress, because everyone was hiding. And at night, they'd come out and attack them, and they just ended up giving up. So there were thousands of people.
Yeah, 9,000 garrisoned the wall. They came from all over the known empire, including from the Tigris, what we'd now call Iraq. Iraqi Arabs were stationed. They must have found it very chilly and unpleasant.
What wall is that there? That's a Gasque, is it?
No, that's Hadrian's Wall.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah, which is in great shape. I don't think the Gasque Wall is in much shape.
I went for a walk along there with a friend of mine he's like a real Cockney geezer.
Yeah.
And he's always, you know, that sort of myth of, like, people being friendly in the north and not so friendly
Your
in
daft
the
barn
south.
cake.
Yeah, we walked up along there. This summed up the north-south divide for friendliness and not friendliness and talking to strangers and that. Two blokes walked past. It was about 8:30 in the morning. We were having a long walk round, and a bloke went, "Morning," and I went, "Morning," and my mate went, "Who's that?" Just saying good morning to a stranger. That's not weird.
Now, what's this? What's this? What's this? Pass it down. Just all you've got to do is tell me what it is. Have a taste. It's, I promise you, not poison, despite being green.
It's not wasabi, is it?
Wasabi.
Wasabi, there we go. You would be served this if you were to go out around London and go to most Japanese restaurants, and I would have a taste. Whoa!
I
Pretty
can't.
hot. Do you find it too hot?
Yeah, I can't even. My mother thinks tomato and basil soup is too spicy.
Jesus.
Oh,
That's too spicy for me. What's in that, Aisling?
That is as close to wasabi as you can get without it being wasabi. I nearly took a mouthful of that, you know. It's not a joke.
I can't take chili, but I can take as
I
much
put a load
mustard.
in because you said it wasn't...
You said it was not wasabi.
It's not wasabi. I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is.
Kill the man over there. It's not jackass, it's QI.
What you're eating there is horseradish. Now, you may say wasabi is Japanese horseradish, but the wasabi you get sold in British restaurants is almost always ordinary British horseradish dyed green.
No.
Yes. Because real wasabi, although it's related to horseradish, takes 2 years to mature and it's very expensive to transport. So it's much easier to use the British stuff, which grows on railway sidings and is cheap as chips, to use that instead.
You know what, Stephen? That would have been lovely, just if you'd explained it and used some bloody pictures. Rather than give us some and go put that in your mouth.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, I can hear things like a dog does. It's dumb things in me. This might have been way all my life to become a superhero, and all you had to do was give me a bloody spoonful of that. It's open. See through walls.
It's opened your eustachian tube and your sinuses.
Yeah, cancel my card. I'm flying home.
Oh, bless you. Now, shove your little dishes away, if you can. You might want to keep...
That's enough superpowers for one day.
Now I'm going to demonstrate something called the Leidenfrost effect, named after a certain Dr. Leidenfrost. So, allow me to present a tray, which may seem rather mysterious. There we go. Now, essentially, what the principle is, I'll explain it first, and then you'll see it, is that when you drop some water on a very hot surface, it kind of beads into a little ball and goes around. It's often a way you test the heat of a frying pan or so on, or if you drop water accidentally onto a hot plate. And if you allow this beading to take place on certain surfaces, the beading is sort of predictable and rather exciting. And you can see a little bit of it on VT, in which the bead is going uphill. It's being dropped from a pipette onto a very hot, ridged, sort of sawtoothed surface, and you can see the ball itself. That's
how my sperm reacts with a ridged condom.
You may be wearing it inside out.
Why have you got your sperm in a pipette?
Sufficient.
He's spreading it. All right. So, I have pipettes here, and this is room temperature. I'm going to put it on here, and you can see, as I drop the water, that it's just nothing much happens. But the beads go off, and it's starting to boil and frizz, and as it gets hotter, you'll see the Leidenfrost effect of it.
Listen to... You'd swear the women were watching the Chippendales. Ooh!
But where it gets interesting is where these things have been left on the heat and so already incredibly hot. And this is a little concave thing, and we drop a bit in it. It goes round and round and round and round and round. Rather beautifully. And now we've got another one with the sawtooth that we saw the climbing up, but this is a circular sawtooth, and it should go round and round as well.
Like
Whee! Incredible speed. Look at that.
I don't know why young people have to go and, play Grand Theft Auto when they've all this sort of crack to look forward to.
I know! It's fun. And for a grand finale, you can see here, next to the hot plate, is we've got ourselves a sort of maze. And let's see what happens here. There's a very predictable path, and they go all the way around. And if they've got enough energy, they'll go around twice. There you go, big fellow.
That's like chasing me dad round a shopping place. Don't abandon me.
That's it.
I will make you proud. Dad, come back.
Hours of harmless fun. Now, I asked the very nice scientist from the University of Bath who lent us this equipment what technical solutions this may offer the world, and he said, actually, most of the time, the Leidenfrost effect provides technical problems for plumbing and things like that, and it isn't always a desirable effect. So if you can think at home of some useful solution that can be used from the Leidenfrost effect, we'd be very grateful. But thank you, Kei Takashina from the University of Bath, for the loan of this splendid equipment. And that brings us to the sizzling scores. Well, my word, we have well, I'm not surprised he's won. He's been on fire. Despite one klaxon, clear lead from Jason Manford at +3.
Oh,
And in second place, that intellectual warhorse, Johnny Vegas, on 2. And a magnificent debut only brought down by penguins for Aisling B on -7. In a shock surprise, In nearly last place is the audience with -10. Whoa! Just picking them in the L for loser position is Alan Davis with -14. That's all from Aisling, Johnny, Jason, Alan and me, and I leave you with the rather poignant last words from Stan Laurel, who, when asked how he felt, said, "I wish I was skiing." "Oh, Mr. Laurel, do you ski?" replied the nurse. "No," he said, "but I'd rather be skiing than doing what I am doing." Good night.
Next storm, BBC Two. Testimony from former head decision makers of Israel's internal secret